Back to the phone lines now. Talk to Troy, listening on Detroit. Hi, Troy.
Hello, Mr. Hanegraaff. I appreciate your efforts on our behalf.
You got it. My privilege.
I have a couple of friends that I'm a Christian, but I'm not the best Christian, so most of my friends are non-believers, and one of the biggest questions I've had to deal with is how do you coincide dinosaurs and the Bible? And, the only thing I really find is about the behemoths and such and so forth, and I don't know how to tell my friends, they were created by God and such, and they all say, well, don't you think Adam would have probably have been eaten by a T-Rex or something?
Well, I think the thing that you have to recognize when you deal with these kinds of things is that God has two books. He has the book of knowledge, or the Bible. He also has the book of nature. If you look at the book of nature, you know that dinosaurs existed. The question that's debated by Christians is when they existed. And certainly there are many Christians that hold to an old universe, and they do so on the basis of the book of nature. They look at nature, they read that book carefully, and they realize as a result of that we live in an old universe, and therefore the presupposition is that dinosaurs could have predated Adam by literally millions, actually hundreds of millions of years.
Okay, then the next question because God created the world in 7 days, right?
Well, again, this gets to my other point, and that is you have to be able to read the Bible critically as well. That's an art and that's a science, which is to say that when the Bible talks about the 7 days of creation, one must not suppose that within that we have a chronology of creation. What we actually have there is a hierarchy of creation with humankind as the crowning jewels of God's creation. So rather than reading it chronologically, I think we're better served to read it chirologically and understand God's purposes, recognizing that God is unbounded by time. So we look at effects linearly and say an effect follows a cause. We look at things chronologically, but God is not bound by time. And thus we have to recognize that we shouldn't just look at the Bible from a humanistic standpoint. We have to look at this from a sanctified, godly standpoint, recognizing the nature of God and God's heavenly condescension to use physical realities to communicate spiritual truth. And one of the beauties that you have at the very beginning in Genesis is a mnemonic device by which every single day of the week we can remember God's creative prowess. And so it's something that is imprinted upon the tablet of our consciousness and becomes a pattern by which in the Decalogue we learn to live our lives by the pattern that God set forth for us in the heavenly condescension that we find in the account of Genesis, which is a historical narrative, but obviously interlaced with Jewish poetic structure as well. So we want to read it literally, which means that we want to read it as literature, take it in the sense in which it's inspired, because at the end of the day, it's not just literature, it's inspired literature. Now, there are young earth creationists that believe that dinosaurs lived at the same time as humankind, and therefore there is a debate amongst Christians that ought to not divide, but cause us to have iron sharpen iron.